So hello and thank you for joining us today. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Adele Searle. I have previously been a head of mathematics and exams officer. I'm now a school relationships executive for Sparx. I spent a year at Cranbrook Education Campus teaching using Sparx resources before then moving into my current role. So today I'm going to guide you through the scheme of learning preparation. But before I do, I'm going to hand you over just so Jackie can say hello. It's my colleague Jackie Hobson, and she can introduce herself.
Right, thanks, Adele. Like Adele, I'm an experienced teacher, different subject, drama, and I worked with young people on the autistic spectrum for a few years as well, and also an exams officer. And now I'm the same role as Adele, and we look after the schools and we look after you. And yeah, it's great. It's lovely. So I'm going to be looking after the chat today. So if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat and then I'll look after those. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So today's session is designed to guide you through the process of scheme of learning in preparation for the next academic year. But before we get started, it's just to let you know the session is being recorded and the recording will be available in the knowledge base if you would like to review any of the points at a later date. If you have any comments, please add them to the chat, and we would really like to hear any feedback you have on today's presentation. If, however, you know of any points you would like to be covered during the webinar today, then just pop them into the chat now and we can make sure we do that for you. So the schemes of learning in Sparx refer to the ordering of topics, and these are grouped into weeks. You can choose a pre-prepared scheme of learning, you can adapt an existing one, or you can choose a blank template so you can build it yourself. Teachers use the current week of the scheme of learning to access your chosen topics and plan their lessons using the appropriate objectives. But that's all based on your curriculum, so you have full control of that. Homework is created from taught lessons when you're using Sparx Maths in the classroom. And just a reminder, an objective is considered taught if 50% of the class log in, and of those 50% of the students complete 75% of the core questions. In Sparx homework, the weekly homework is built from the topics that you have put into the current week's scheme of learning. But you always have flexibility, and at any time you can go into Homework Planner and change things to suit your needs. So for existing Sparx homework classes moving on to Sparx Maths Classroom, the scheme of learning will remain the same, but amendments can be made in the planner. Before you create your classes and use Sparx with your students, you will need to choose the schemes of learning which you want to use. And there's more detail on the content in our Sparx content and attainment levels training module, or you can request some more content information from your liaison. So we have updated our scheme of learning templates to ensure that they reflect the most recent versions of the exam boards. And I'm just going to let one more person in, bear with. Lovely. Welcome, Joe. Nice to have you join us. If Joe, we could ask you, because we're recording, just to turn your camera off and keep yourself on mute, and also to check you're happy for us recording today. Nice to see you, sweetie. Okay, so we'll just continue. So we've updated our scheme of learning templates, and that's to reflect the changes, and so therefore they are the most recent versions of the exam boards. And we've also got the white rose scheme of learning. And in addition to that, we have the Sparx Key Stage 3 and also Sparx GCSE, and you can choose either a 3 or a 2-year option. So basically, we have also evened out weeks in the Sparx and Edexcel schemes of learning that contained a particularly high number of objectives if you've used them before. Whilst teachers may have based their own scheme of learning on previous templates, it really isn't necessary to remake your scheme of learning as a result of these updates, but we would encourage you to do so if you wish to benefit from the most recent changes that have been made, but you have full flexibility with that. So the first step then is to look at choosing and assigning one member of the department for your scheme of learning creation. The scheme of learning creator can edit it, but once it's been added, a scheme of learning can't be deleted and another member of staff can't go on and amend it. So it's really good just to decide moving forward who's going to be responsible for that. You can copy an existing scheme of learning, rename it, and then publish it in preparation for assigning to your classes. So if somebody is no longer responsible for the scheme of learning, you can use what they've previously made and adapt it. So by including the academic year and an attainment level indicator, you'll make your life so much easier when you're assigning the schemes of learning to your classes. And you can also make your process far more straightforward because there's going to be a new point where you can actually choose the academic year. It's not quite in the system yet, but it will be within the next few weeks. Alternatively, you can set up a blank scheme of work and build it from scratch, and that means you can make one to totally suit your department's needs. And you can mirror a scheme of learning if you do require a MAT level curriculum provision. The only other thing to point out is be aware that the weeks which appear blank on a scheme of learning will be for scheduling, things like assessment week or an activity week. So don't be worried if you have to leave a week blank in there. And if you do need to make any amendments after you've published your scheme of learning, that's absolutely fine. You can copy it and then edit and suit your assessment schedule or whatever else you need. So I'm going to go through some of these points now live in the demo. So if you bear with me, I will need to swap screens for you. I'll just do that now. Okay, so rather than throw a load of screenshots at you, I thought I'd show you what you can do and the flexibility that you do have when you're using Sparx Scheme of Learner Builder. So if we look at the navigation bar on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's a More tab, and in there you go to Schemes of Learning. At this point, you can see my school has got 9 schemes of learning. The first place that we're going to head to, though, is templates. So here you have a choice, either to access a blank template or to use existing templates for year 7, and it goes up through the year groups at various levels. And you'll also see once you're into GCSE, you have foundation and higher. And you can choose then which one you'd like. It does have a name, but you'll rename that because you're going to add your academic year and attainment level to it. But the scheme is also listed, so you'll know whether it's AQA or EdXL, etc. There are other examples available. So one new thing to point out is that year 7 now also has a support scheme of learning available to you. So you've got the ordinary year 7, which is Sparx Key Stage 3. You can access the white rows, but if you do have some students who need a little bit of extra nurture, you can use year 7 support to base your scheme of learning on. So for now, I'm going to go for a Sparx Key Stage 3 year 7, go to the options drop down, and I can either preview to see what's inside, and in this case, I'm actually going to make a copy. I'm going to name it. And remember, we said it would be a really good idea to put an attainment level. So if I would just put main, because I know it's the main group, and then the academic year, I would put 2020. I could put 2020 to 2021. You will have the freedom to name it whatever way you like. At this point then, I select a Year 7 year group, but that's totally flexible for you. And then I know the academic year is from September. So I press Create. You'll see now that my draft scheme of learning is available under the My School tab, and it automatically navigates you there. At this point then, I'm going to actually go in and edit. But at any time you can rename it, you can preview it, you can edit and you can copy. But later on when you've published it, you'll be a little bit more restricted as to what you can do. Once you've published, you can't edit. So if we look in the edit, and you'll see that the scheme of learning is split into weeks on the right-hand side and your topics on the left. And you'll see that we've got strands. So if I click on number, the substrand is automatically listed for me. And say I choose place value and I wanted to pop number lines in. If I wanted to put number lines into the first week, just as a little practice and a little icebreaker for the students, I could drag my topic there. And if I wanted to change the order, I could just then pop it up to the top. If I wasn't sure that that was what I wanted, I could actually click on the eye, which is the little orange icon. And in here, I get a description, which tells me about the key learning points. And then I can also click on example questions. And if there are easier through to harder options, you'll have maybe 5 or 6 example questions to look at there. Number lines is pretty straightforward. So you can see that here we've got no other questions to look at. So if we close our using number lines and say then I decided actually I don't want to put number lines in, I'm quite happy with starting with equivalent fractions, I could then press delete. If I wanted to take a topic and maybe I wanted to put it into week 2, I can drag from one week to the next. And if I make a mistake or decide to make an amendment later, I can bring it back. So you have the total flexibility at any time to build your scheme of learning, and it will run through each half term. So, and it does allow for the winter holidays. It will be based on your school term dates. So those are already set up for you. Moving forward, just a reminder that if maybe for week 1 you had an assessment week, I know some departments decide to assess the students when they first come in, you might actually choose to delete all of those items. And if you did that and left week 1 blank, that then would give you a totally free week for your staff then to choose what to put in and assign their assessments. So there are times when you know you have a particularly able class coming through, and it could be maybe with a year 9. Obviously, we're setting up a test year 7 here, but I'm just going to show you do have the option of popping in some GCSE if you wanted to. So if you want to increase the stretch and challenge that's available for a particular class or subgroup, you could, if you like, include some GCSE content. Also, once teachers are using your scheme of learning and following your curriculum path, they can actually add some additional topics if they need to. So say at this point we thought actually we would like to add some addition to the first week. I'd literally need to first type into the search box the first few letters of the word, and you can see this is giving me some GCSE choices, or I can go into a combination of topics which are both Key Stage 3 and GCSE. It's based on a normal September start, but if your school has different dates, it will already have been built to suit your dates. So should be no problems there. At this point, if we wanted to just go to Key Stage 3 and we decided to pick an extra item, we could take something like adding integers and pull that straight across and pop it into week 1. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you can turn homework off for the first few weeks if that helps. And there are some schools that give the students a little bit of settle-in time. And like I say, if you want to, you can turn the homework off and then switch it on when you're ready. Your topics that you have in your scheme of learning, if you're using Classroom, will feed directly into homework if they meet the talk criteria. If not, you can adjust the homework planner to suit your needs, so you have full flexibility and total control of that. So if at this point we think we're all good and we're happy, we could go back, and then if we thought we were good to go and we had made sure everything was ready, we could press publish. And you'll notice that when we're in a draft form, it stays black in the status. And when we've published, that will then turn green. So the other option that you have, if we go into templates, we can go on to a blank template. And for this one, we copy. And if I just call this, put the year group in. On type this afternoon, put year 7 and go create. So here I've got a totally blank scheme of learning. And so if I go to edit on the drop down, I have no topics available at all. And I can pop into number, go to place value, choose number lines, bring it across. If I want whole numbers, bring it across, and maybe some decimals could go into week 2. At any time, I can swap the order, same as I could when it was an existing one. And at any time, I can look for some more information on the description, some more example questions, and the teaching notes gives you a guide of what will be used in the video and the methods shown. So at this point now, if I come back, if I had done my scheme of learning and I was good to go, I could actually go to publish. And once you have pressed publish, you'll see it turns green and you can then assign to the classes. So I'm just going to come back to our webinar presentation. So bear with me, I'm just going to change screens again. And I did allude to the fact that there is a new section when you're creating a scheme of learning that hasn't actually been introduced yet. This will be introduced over the next few weeks, but if you set your scheme of learning up before then, it's not a problem. The system will automatically assign it for you. So basically, when creating a new scheme of learning or copying an existing scheme, you're going to be asked to choose the base curriculum for your scheme from a drop-down list. So that'll be for Key Stage 3 or GCSE. There will be a tooltip which will explain to you what this is. And when you're creating a class, the attainment levels that appear will now directly relate to the base curriculum of the scheme of learning that's associated with that class. And for example, if the base curriculum was set for the scheme for Key Stage 3, then attainment levels A to D would show. So you tell Sparx which base curriculum you would like, and you assign the year group, and then give the academic year. And it can mean that your academic year then will adjust for you. And if you wanted to set up multiple academic years, then you could. Okay, so once you have copied your scheme of learning, as I showed you, it will be listed in My School. So it moves from templates into My School. At that point, you can make any edits or amendments. You can add, move, or remove objectives. And it means that you have the flexibility to build a path through your curriculum for the year. You will need to remember to publish your scheme of learning before it can be assigned to any classes. If you try to assign something that's not published, it just won't be available there for you. So if you can't find your scheme of learning, just pop back into My School and see if it is in draft or published form. And you'll see when it's published because it goes green. At this point, you are all ready to assign the scheme of learning to the relevant classes, and you should be good to go. So, are there any questions? And if so, please pop them into the chat. And also, please feel free to share your thoughts, as we really value your feedback at Sparx, and we can always pass those on to the team. I'm just going to check the chat now and see what else we have in here. Let's have a look. So if you're doing mixed ability, this is the question from Nick for the first half of term, and then you're setting, what you could do is set up a scheme of learning for the first half of term, and then you could build on that by copying and then actually making a new copy and adding the rest of the term. So you can adapt how you do your scheme of learning. And also you would then need to, at the half-term point, assign the correct scheme of learning to the correct class. There's no reason why you couldn't set those up well ahead of time. So that's not a problem at all. Let's see what else we've got. So Jackie put a note in then that if you want students to study the same topic, you can adjust the attainment level for a class, and the questions do adjust topic by topic for each student. Let's have a look at the others. So from after October half term, each year group may be doing different topics at different time. Does that mean you'll have to do a different scheme of learning for each group? Well, you could copy the scheme of learning, and if the order of the topics change, you can actually drag and drop. So it depends how much movement you want, but if you use your original one that you have made, you can make the adjustments by dragging and dropping rather than starting from scratch again. So that might help, Nick. Let's see. So yeah, you can either do your different scheme of learning by copying, drag or drop, or you can start again by using a blank template. Your alternative is, if the adjustments are not too many, you could use the homework planner and adjust on a week-by-week basis, the same as you do if something doesn't meet a talk criteria and you have to pop it in the planner manually. So you will still have flexibility even on a week-by-week basis. Are there any other questions? Interesting. So normally when you're setting up objectives for homework, you look at, if you have a class lesson, you would normally put 1 or 2 objectives in there. I wouldn't put too many in, because otherwise you've got 60% of the homework is going to be based on what you choose to put into the scheme of learning, but also what meets the talk criteria if you're using Classroom. 40% then is also revision and consolidation. So if they're smaller objectives, you could put quite a few in there. If it's bigger topics and there's lots of objectives within that topic, then you might want to keep it to 1 or 2 topics, which would give you a range of objectives. So I suppose the short answer to that one, Nick, is really it depends on the complexity of the concept that you're teaching that week. And most teachers have got a really good idea of how much a student can do within the hour's homework. But definitely, if you look at the existing schemes of learning, you should get a good idea that there's sort of usually 4 or 5 topics in the week for homework. But yeah, definitely have a look and see what you can adapt from what's there. And maybe, because they've been prepared so carefully by our content team, maybe have a good look to see what they do with maybe weeks where there's something like trig or something that's very new to the students. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I will conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much for your participation in today's Scheme of Learning preparation webinar. For now, it's goodbye, keep safe, and the team and I will look forward to seeing you in your next training webinar. Keep well. Bye-bye. Thank you.